Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tamia Booker, and I'm a consultant with Gain Power and the president and founder of the consulting firm T. Booker Strategies. Welcome to Powering Blue 2022. It's going to be interesting to say next year. Our virtual conference, marketing, and networking event series organized by Gain Power for the progressive political community. We're gathering to rally Democratic and progressive nonprofits, campaigns, political action committees, consulting firms, independent artists, cultural content creators, and change makers. The Democratic Party has a lot of at stake next year, defending our Congress, supporting candidates from the top of the ticket, strengthening our cities and towns across the country, and most importantly, protecting the right to vote. I'm very excited for tonight's plenary. We have top national Democratic and progressive leaders who will join us to share an overview of the 2022 landscape and how they plan to win in 2022. Despite what the news says, we did have some wins this year. Our first speaker tonight is Mayor-elect Ed Gainey, and he's going to be the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. And it's a city I adore very much. I was actually born there and have a lot of family there. Mayor Gainey grew up in East Liberty and saw firsthand the economic hardships many families face in the city of Pittsburgh. He was raised by a single mother. He counted on the support of his extended family and community to build a pathway to high school and college. Inspired to do the same for others, Ed Gainey discovered in college that an effective government can be a powerful tool to fight injustice and uplift communities. As a state representative in Harrisburg, he's been on the front line fighting for working families. And as mayor of Pittsburgh, he'll work every day to make Pittsburgh a city where all can belong and contribute. Ed and his wife, Michelle, have 3 children and live in the Lincoln-Lexington neighborhood of Pittsburgh. So Mayor-elect could not be with us tonight, but he took time out of his schedule to send us a video. So we'll go to his video right now.
Hello, Gain Power. I'm so thankful to be here today. Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited about the future of our party because of you. The more people we get engaged in the democratic process, the more we make the right changes that help all society. That's the biggest thing I thought about when I ran for mayor. Is how do I get everybody on board to fight for the issues that's going to bring the type of changes that's going to be good for all, to make Pittsburgh the city in which we all live in. And when I think about it, I think about some things that I believe brought us together. One is when we talked about affordable housing, the need for everybody to have a right to fair, clean, affordable, safe housing. That's a human right. And that's why I fought so hard for affordable housing, and why in my administration I will continue to fight hard and bring on advocates in the campaign that can help us get there. Police community relations. We know that we have to strengthen our relationships. We know we have to demilitarize the police. We know that we have to make sure we got social workers going on calls. We know that we have to stop over-policing in black and brown neighborhoods. We know what it takes to build a better police community relation, but it only happens with you. It happens with you because you stirred up the whole society to understand why it is so important that we have justice that favors everybody. And I thank you for that. When we talk about equity in our society, when we talk about ensuring that black women have a seat at the table, that they have positions of power, power in which the next generation of little girls can see themselves in the role models that they have of black women in power positions. That's bringing the change that we need. And that's why next year I'm very excited about where we're at. In the state of Pennsylvania, we got a governor's race, a U.S. Senate race that is going to change the complexity of our state. But it's only going to happen if we stay engaged. It's only going to happen if we continue to reach back and put the progressive ideals into campaigns in which at the end of the day, we change the course of our state, we'll change the course of our nation, what changes the course of society. You make the difference. See, the time is now, and that's why you're needed. The voice of the youth is more powerful now than ever before. Every great change in society has started with our youth. And when you think of the movements that we put together, the environmental movement for environmental justice, the criminal movement for criminal justice, social justice, all the justices that we are fighting for to make America the place that we want her to be, it starts with you. You're the eyes of tomorrow. There's no question about it. You're the eyes of tomorrow. And so I'm going to encourage each and every one of y'all to get involved and go get it. To get up every single day and meet people where they're at. I don't care if they're socialist, progressive, moderates, or conservative. They all want the same thing: good, clean roads, good, clean neighborhoods, good schools, and good police-community relations. We all want that. Together, that's what makes us the United States of America. And we got a chance to live up to that creed only when we come together and create a nation for all. So we can talk about it all day, but if you're not touching 100 people a day, if you're not out there talking about the values that mean something to us, to the people that you come in contact with, if you cannot touch 100 people a day between meetings, neighborhood meetings, town meetings, social media, if you can't touch 100 people a day, you didn't get up and go get it. And we can only have change one way: when we engage the nation so that they can see a brighter future. You can do that. That's why we have this moment in time now. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to meeting you one day.
Thank you so much, Mayor-elect. And I wanted to say a special shout out to his staff, also to making sure he had the time to give us those words as he prepares for his next administration. Our next speaker will be Roger Lau, a campaign veteran and the Deputy Executive Director of the DNC. He has worked on campaigns for several Senate and House congressional races in New England and served in the Commerce Department during the Obama administration. In 2012, Lau began working on Elizabeth Warren's first Senate campaign in Massachusetts as political director. After helping her become the first woman to serve in the Senate for Massachusetts, Roger served as her state director in the Senate, overseeing her staff and outreach operations, and was tapped to lead her 2018 re-election effort. In 2019, he was named Senator Warren's campaign manager for her bid for president. He was one of the first Asian Americans to manage an American presidential campaign. He started working in politics as an intern for the then Massachusetts Senator John Kerry's office, where he attended the University of Massachusetts, where he studied political science. And he served in many roles on Kerry's Senate staff and campaign, including as Deputy State Director in the Senate office, campaign manager for his 2008 re-election campaign, and was a member of the national campaign staff during Kerry's presidential run in 2004. Shout out to us. Roger is a native of New York City. And now I will turn it over to Roger to talk about how he is leading the charge at the DNC and will help us win next year and beyond.
Thank you, Tamia. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right, well, great to join you. Congratulations on T Booker Strategies. I'm incredibly excited for you and really, really excited to be working with you in your new venture. Thank you, Game Power. Thank you for letting me join all of you. I'm excited to be joining all of you with the Power Blue 2022. I can't believe we're saying 2022 already, but that's a good sign. That means we're starting early. Thank you for Game Power for all the work that you do. The work that you do connecting powerful people with powerful purpose and opportunities gives us all the chance to change lives, change our future, and ultimately change our world. And that is ultimately, fundamentally, why we do what we do. So to the folks who we're talking to, who are participating in this, I'm excited to join you because this is all about opportunity. Some of you are looking for your first big break to be a part of this, to make that change, and looking to connect with people to find that vehicle, that opportunity that makes sense for you to bring the change you want to see. Some of you have already been involved in this and looking for your next big break, the next big opportunity after you've gotten the bug. And some of you are people that maybe have had other careers and looking for a change. Clearly looking to make the big bucks in politics. But we want to welcome you too. We have a wealth of people who have a wealth of talent and expertise that bring their experiences, their really just like their life experience and professional experiences that make a whole world of a difference in politics. I think a lot of times we think about politics in terms of experts, and only people who've been doing this stuff for a long time can do it and do it well. But there are so many people who've lived life and done lots of things and learned lots of skills that make a huge difference. And frankly, those are some of the best staffers we've had. So thank you for being a part of this. I thought I'd show a little bit about my career, which Tamia talked about. I was a kid who was son of a couple of immigrants. Both my parents were from China. They immigrated to the United States to try to find a better opportunity in life for them and for their kids. My brothers and I, had the chance to go to some of the best public schools in New York City. I unfortunately also had the opportunity to fail out and flunk out and get in trouble and flunk out some of the best public schools in New York City. I got in some trouble, did some things I regret. But at some point I realized that in order for me to, fulfill the promise that my parents had hoped for us, by coming to America, by working hard, by each working 2 jobs, for me to make that reality, I would have to get an education. So the short version and the cleaner version is I wound up taking my GED. For those who don't know, it's a high school equivalency exam. I wound up doing that and then studying for, the SATs with this gigantic book that I never saw before. It's not a book with words or stories. It's just like questions and a bunch of answers that I had to figure out eventually. But, I was lucky enough to go to college, and I wound up leaving New York City, and I knew that in order for me to succeed, I had to go as far away from home, from my friends, my neighborhood, and all the temptation that an undisciplined, 19-year-old version of me couldn't deal with. And, the furthest place I could think of at the time was Massachusetts. Turns out that when you have a car, you're not just relying on the subway. It's not that far away. But to me, it was a world of difference. It was a world of opportunity. And, I started, thinking, how do I pay back? How do I pay back and fulfill my parents' promise? How do I make this all worth it? And as I thought about it, politics was the path that I decided to take, because that was the best way I could think of where I can fight for families like mine. I could help, people like my grandparents who were immigrated and lucky enough, to come here to help raise me and my brothers, come here and frankly have some measure of security and home and family, but also like help kids like me, who made mistakes and needed second chances to sort of pick themselves back up and do better. So politics is what I decided to do. I wound up responding to, and those of you who are old enough to remember this, I responded to a newspaper ad, for an internship for then Senator John Kerry in Springfield, Massachusetts. Took out the ad, came in for the interview, bought a suit for the first time, combed my hair. I wound up spilling my guts in that first interview. I thought it was the federal government, the U.S. Senate. If I didn't tell the truth, not only would they know, but I'd probably go to jail if I didn't tell them everything. So, I fessed up about every single thing I did, everything I got busted for, even things I didn't get caught for. I wound up telling the truth. And, it was a very sweaty interview. By the time I was done with it, the folks looked at me and they looked kind of amused, and they said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yeah. Is there any way, if I work really hard, if I do a really good job, and I learn as much as I possibly can, is there a way I can work in politics? And I get a job with John Kerry in Boston or DC or on his campaign?" And they said, "No. And we're not going to lie to you. Most kids who do these internships in the Springfield office, they don't get a chance to work in these jobs. But maybe if you work hard and you intern here, we can get you another internship somewhere else." So I appreciated the honesty. I worked my tail off. I learned as much as I could, and I loved it. I loved just being the kid that, frankly, messed up as much as I did, who had as unlikely of a background as I did as a high school dropout, someone with a criminal record, someone from a family that wasn't connected, that got to work on behalf of a senator for constituents. I got to, talk to constituents and listen to the problems and reach out to federal agencies and find solutions. It just didn't seem like there was something that would be possible, at any point in my life. So having the chance to do that, I absolutely caught the bug. I decided this is what I wanted to do. I applied to every job I could possibly think of. And I was planning on heading back, to New York City, to find a job at home. And I remember getting a call. This is back in the day before cell phones. I packed up my apartment, packed up my car. So my car was like filled up with stuff. Things were tied on top. It was probably not safe. And the only thing left that was in my apartment was my sleeping bag and my landline, right? Because I was waiting for those calls. The phone rang, and it was John Kerry's office. And they said, "Hey, just wanted to thank you for your work. Thank you for all you did. Remember when we told you it wasn't possible for you to get a job working for John Kerry?" I said, "Yeah, of course I remember that. And I appreciated your honesty." They said, "We were wrong. You are the exact kind of young person that we want to be part of this team. You're the exact kind of young person that we need to be a part of this, and this is how we make change." So they asked me if I would take the job. I said yes. And I hung up the phone. I don't think I even asked them when I started what the salary was, but I was so excited. But yeah, from that point on, I wound up working for John Kerry on and off for 14 years with Timia on the 2004 campaign, working on the various campaigns on behalf of John Kerry. The reason why I say it was on and off is because I was a kid that, would raise his hand for anything. Answering phone, sure. Go clean the office, sure. Go drive John Kerry, sure. Go get, cookies for, the volunteers, yeah, absolutely. And that raising my hand thing turned into, other things, wound up being, John Kerry endorsed a candidate, can you help organize volunteers? Can you, after you're doing that, can you run a canvas? And eventually it became, when John Kerry endorsed people, can you be a campaign manager for them? And so I rose up through the ranks and had this amazing experiences doing that. The last time I took the leave of absence to work on behalf of John Kerry was for a law professor from Oklahoma who only talked about finance and Wall Street reform, and her name was Elizabeth Warren. I didn't think she was going to win, but John Kerry asked me to work for her, and despite the fact that I didn't think she was going to win, she seemed like a really interesting candidate that was talking about interesting things. And needless to say, I absolutely fell in love. I had so much fun, and I wound up working for her for almost 10 years. So here I am now at the DNC. So I'm going to make a pitch for the DNC. So when I first started working at the DNC, somebody asked me, "You're working for Elizabeth Warren. You've worked for all these senators and whatever. Why are you working at the DNC?" And I thought about it a lot, and I talked to someone that was really smart, who I really respect, and she said to me, working at the DNC is different. Democratic National Committee is different than working for a candidate. When you are a candidate, when you are working for a campaign, when you're a campaign manager, it's like driving a car on the highway. And you can get to the point where you can drive fast, you can drive well. You might even get to the point where you can maintain the car, right? But when you're working at a place like the DNC or a state party or the party structure, you're not driving a car on the highway anymore. You're running the highway, you're maintaining the highway, you're managing the highway. And your job is to make sure that traffic flows, that resources are there, that infrastructure is strong. And Roger, this person said to me, if you do this right, if we do this right, you're going to make it so that anybody who wants to drive in the car on the highway that's a Democratic Party highway can drive on that highway. And that means candidates, if we're running, it's not just the most wealthy, most connected, most powerful who have access to money, staff, consultants, good data, tools. It's good, everybody. And if you do this right, then it's anybody who wants to drive on this highway can, and anyone who wants to volunteer can, anyone who wants to get a job in politics can, anyone who wants to donate can. We're here to democratize the process, and you have a big opportunity to run this highway. And that to me was incredibly powerful because it goes back to what I thought about when I first started, this idea that only certain people were able to get involved in politics and be able to do this stuff. And I believe if I and other people and this call and on the Zoom and people like you, build this infrastructure, this highway that the DNC is a part of, we can make it so that a lot more people who deserve to be part of the process, who need to be part of the process, can be. So I hope you'll consider being a part of this. The last thing I'll say is I think it's so awesome that Gain Power does what they do. I wish I had something like that. I wish I wasn't just looking at newspapers and classified ads and randomly applying for jobs. It's such an incredibly powerful network. Like I said, it's connecting powerful people with powerful purpose. And that to me is the most exciting part of what we do. But the last thing I'm going to leave you with is networks like that are really important. Opportunities like this, gatherings like this are really important. But as you go through your career, the people you're meeting at these events, your peers especially, these are the people who are going to be where you find the most opportunity. So make sure you get a chance to talk to people, meet people, and get ideas on how you do this work. But we have a lot of work to do in 2022. I'm sure to me and others will be talking about it. I'm looking forward to being part of it, and hopefully I get a chance to see you next year somewhere in the trail. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Roger. And thank you for sharing your story about how you got involved and showing that there's never one pathway into getting involved in politics. And we appreciate you. And I feel good knowing that you're in charge over there. So thank you for everything.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Tamia.
All right, thank you. Take care. Our next speaker is a leader at the DSCC, the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, Jessica Knight Henry. She's a political strategist and development fundraising professional with well over a decade of experience. She has amassed a wealth of knowledge in the world of political strategy, political fundraising, nonprofit development, and political action committee management. Jessica is the Deputy ED and the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Jess is amazing, and I'm super excited knowing that you're a leader over there. Talk to us about the DS and the key Senate races at stake for next year and how we're going to win them.
Thanks so much, Tamia, and congratulations again on your new venture. I'm really excited to be here today with so many of my amazing colleagues and honestly friends in the movement. As Roger alluded, there are a lot of us that have been kind of pounding this pavement for a while, and honestly, to be in leadership positions is really an honor to be able to serve and give back and help sort of pave the path for, or the highway, as Roger mentioned, for that next generation. So very excited to do my part. So as Roger mentioned, the DNC is certainly one of our big sort of masterminds in terms of committee, but the DSCC is the only organization that is committed solely to electing a Democratic Senate. From organizing, fundraising, candidate recruitment, it's an essential resource for so many of our Senate candidates and our Democratic incumbents. And we work around the clock to help re-elect those leaders and bring them to Washington. We know that the current United States Senate is the most diverse in the history of this country. We know that we need to do better. This is an amazing milestone, but that progress is very incremental, and we are working really, really hard. Power 22, as we've been talking about, we're here, we're in it, we're in the thick of it. The goal is for us to expand our Senate majority. As many of you all are following closely what's happening in Congress, even today as we speak, it's been a tough road, and we know that a 50-50 Senate, a true majority does not make. So we want to be able to expand on that and focus on a representative Democratic Party that ensures that diverse communities have a voice and can see themselves through the lens of their elected leaders. So again, thank you all for having us here. I would love to kind of dig deep and talk to you guys about sort of the map. We know that I think this time last year, many of us were in the thick of it after we found out that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had been elected, duly elected as president and vice president-elect. But the balance of the Senate hung in sort of this weird purgatory because we had this runoff election that existed. And many of my colleagues who are joining you all this very weekend were very significant partners in that effort. And so last year we were defending 12 seats, where the Republicans were defending 22, and that included the 2 seats in Georgia. And we fought hard. A lot of us didn't get many of the Christmas and Thanksgiving breaks last year, but it was just amazing to see people in Georgia, particularly people of color in Georgia, Black people in Georgia, really make the difference and help move us over the finish line. In 2022, we are defending 14 seats. Republicans are defending 20 seats. And 2 of those seats are seats that we won just last year. That includes Reverend Raphael Warnock in Georgia and Mark Kelly in Arizona as well. There are 4 open seats: Alabama, North Carolina, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So plenty of opportunity to be sort of on the march as an offensive front. But incumbent protection still remains our top priority. And the good news is that if we reelect all of our Democratic senators, we will stay in the majority, but we know that that's not enough. And so we are working hard with some key strategic priorities. We are, one, working to hold Republicans accountable and elevate Democratic priorities. We are already in the field in many, many places, working to put together strong, coordinated campaigns. The earliest efforts we've ever done that to make sure that we are communicating and talking to our voters now, and even in some of these places where we don't necessarily have a Democratic nominee yet, that they will be able to walk into a turnkey operation on the ground in many of those states. And additionally, working to help support to combat voter suppression and to fight for voting rights across this country. We know that voter protection is going to be a key component to how we win. And we aren't able to do any of this without tapping into communities of color. We know that there is a significant amount of power. We know that voters of color recognize the power that they have, and we continue to make sure that we're investing in those communities early, talking to them often, and getting them out. And so with that in mind, the DSCC is committed to creating a pipeline of diverse staff at all levels. I am the first ever diversity and inclusion officer at the DSCC. I'm so proud to hold that post. It's one of those things where I'm going to keep that door open and have it wide open and let as many people run in for as long as they can. But making sure that it's important to have folks with very lived experience, with cultural competency, very engaged in what's happening. And so we can really authentically communicate to voters, and that it's less of a transaction happening across the board. We know that we want to recruit the strongest Democratic candidates, and we can't do that without having diverse, strong, extremely smart staff. And that's where you guys come in. Like we're so proud to have so many of you guys participating in this work. I, as a former field organizer, I was knocking doors for the coordinated campaign in Virginia in 2005 when Tim Kaine was elected governor, and sort of made my way up as a fundraiser, as doing sort of political work, running PACs, all of these various aspects of the campaign, and now to my position where I sit at the DSCC. And so it's important to know that there's a lot of opportunity, there's room for mobility, but most of all, you get to make a difference, and it's so important. And we know that it is going to be a tough map ahead in this continuing just divisive environment. It's important that we know that we are fighting for values that a lot of Americans care about, and that is the most important part. So with that in mind, I appreciate you guys having me today, and look forward to us not only retaining our majority, but expanding that majority in the United States Senate.
All right, thank you, Jess. And I've had a privilege to know you, and just really want to congratulate you again for this expanded role. And just really thank you for being with us today. And I look forward to hopefully working with you next year. All right, so our next speaker was unavailable to come, so she sent in a video. This is Wendy Wallace, who is the Deputy Executive Director for the Democratic Governors Association. And in this role, she serves as the liaison to sitting governors for the committee, as well as a point of contact for partner organizations. Before joining the DGA team, Wendy served as the political outreach director for Planned Parenthood Action Fund, and she joined the team at Planned Parenthood in 2014, managing the Federal PAC and Federal PAC Committee. Prior to her work at Planned Parenthood, Wendy was the manager of the Executive Office and Board Affairs at the Democracy Alliance. Now let's tune in and hear from Wendy.
Hi, everyone, and happy holidays. My name is Wendy Wallace. I am the Deputy Executive Director for the Democratic Governors Association, and we are so excited to be here with you on the Zoom today. As you may know, the DGA is the only national organization completely focused on electing Democrats as governor all across the country. We are very proud to say that we have won everywhere, whether it is Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, California, New York. We have the ability to win races all over the country, and we really enjoy it. As you may know, the DGA operates on a 4-year cycle, which is a little bit different than our sister committees, but it means that over the course of that 4 years, every state will have a governor's race. And internally, we refer to 2022 as the big year. The 4th year in that cycle always has 36 races that are up, and 2022 is no different. So we have a big job ahead of us, but one that we are fully prepared for, and we're ready for the challenge. We are doing a number of things. First and foremost, helping reelect some of our incumbents, people who you may know, like Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin, Governor Steve Sisolak in Nevada, And Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota, Governor Laura Kelly in Kansas, and Governor Janet Mills in Maine. If you have not learned about these governors, you really should. They have been doing amazing work since being elected in 2018. And have really shown great leadership throughout the pandemic, and I think are all in strong positions to get reelected. I think we have we have a lot of long roads ahead of us, but they are working hard. And then beyond incumbents, we are excited about some open seat races. We're hoping to hold the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania with Attorney General Josh Shapiro. I think we also have open seats in Maryland and Arizona with some strong candidates, and newly announced open seat in Massachusetts that I'm sure people are excited about. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention the challenger races. We've got, we're going up against Ron DeSantis in Florida. And there's a primary happening there, so we will hopefully get a really great candidate and can, hold him accountable. Obviously, Beto O'Rourke is running in Texas against an incumbent Governor Abbott and has already generated so much energy and excitement. And then last and certainly not least, Stacey Abrams announcing that she is running in Georgia has everyone beyond excited. So I think there are a lot of things happening, from incumbents to challengers and everything in between, which brings me to why I am here. We are going to need your help. There is, as I just mentioned, there is a lot to get done. This is an all hands on deck situation. And so we are hoping that everyone here will get involved and join the fight. We can't do it alone. These gov teams are going to need fully staffed, fully capable campaigns, in addition to the work that we will be doing with partners at tables in states, coordinated campaigns. We need it all. And that doesn't happen without you. So please, please, please have a great time at this conference. And we look forward to seeing you in your home state or a state nearby. And let's go and win 2022. All right. Thank you so much to the team at Gain Power and all of you for inviting us here this evening. And I look forward to seeing you out in the States. Bye.
Thank you, Wendy, for submitting your video despite your conflict tonight. Just really excited to hear about all of the many races that we have, and my home state, Pennsylvania, being one of them. So good luck. Next up, we have Tori Taylor. Tori is someone I've known since she was an amazing student organizer, and it ages me because now she's running a top progressive organization. But I'm so proud of Tori and just watching the work that she's done. And so, as I mentioned, she serves as the executive director of Swing Left, and Swing Left empowers people to have a high impact in elections that matter the most. And prior to joining Swing Left, Tori managed one of the most competitive congressional races in the country for now Congresswoman Kathy Manning, and served as political advisor for the DNC under Chairman Tom Perez's leadership. Over the last decade, which makes me laugh because that means I've known you even longer than this, Tori has worked for progressive organizations, issue advocacy, and for political campaigns in over 20 states, and has had a wide variety of roles at Emily's List, the Center for American Progress, Obama for America, and both Hillary Clinton's 2008 and 2016 campaigns. She also served in public engagement for the roles at the 2012 Democratic Convention in Charlotte and the President's Inaugural Committee, and was the president of College Democrats of America when she was in college. And that's how I know Tori. During the 2016 election cycle, she was named 30 Women Under 30, changing the 2016 election. As a native of North Carolina, she holds an undergraduate degree from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte and a master's degree from George Washington University. She resides in Washington, D.C. with her partner and her 2 dogs. Tori, Swing Left has been so successful in their efforts, and it's always important for us to protect and support our state House and Senate as we have so much at stake at the state level. Thank you for your work. Talk to us about Swing Left and how we plan to defend or take over next year.
Yes, thank you, Tamia. It's so great to be with you all tonight. I also just have to say, Tamia is one of the few people that has known me since I was literally a child in this work. So I appreciate her continuous support, even when I was like kind of a lame teenager back in the day, but thanks to mentorship from people like her, I ended up getting additional jobs and made something of myself. So thank you, Tamia. Also, thank you to Gain Power for facilitating this event. It's awesome to be in community with all of you, also with all of my very inspiring colleagues and partners on this call. I feel so much energy already from the remarks, and so I feel like grateful to be a participant and also being able to listen in on this as well. Like Tamia said, my name is Tori Taylor. I'm the executive director of Swing Left. We are a national grassroots organization that helps connect volunteers and donors to high impact actions in competitive elections. I'm originally, like Tamia said, from a pretty small town in a conservative part of North Carolina. I grew up in a low income family that saw firsthand the impact of programs like SNAP, federal student loans, workplace retraining programs after globalization and automation wiped out a lot of jobs in my hometown for my family. And I really saw as a young person, as a middle schooler and a teenager, as this was going on, how impactful government and politics could be for families like my own. And as I was thinking about going to college and what could be a useful place for me to make a contribution in what seemed like a very, very big world for a small town kid out of Taylorsville, North Carolina, politics and government felt like could be a good place to make a useful contribution. So I started college. I had no idea where to start in this big world of politics, but there was a woman running for president at the time in 2008 who I found particularly inspiring. And she just so happened to open a field office a few miles from where I was going to school. So I walked in a field office for Hillary Clinton in 2008 and just asked one of the field organizers at one of the front desks, like, hey, I'm new here. Is there anything that somebody like me can do to help? And of course, anyone who's ever worked on campaigns, as soon as a body walks into a field office, like you wrap your arms around that person and you put them to work for the next however many months they will devote their life to you. So it was really all downhill from there. So 3 presidential campaigns later, working at organizations like Emily's List and the DNC to managing campaigns myself, I have been working in campaigns and progressive politics ever since. I've been at Swing Left since the 2018 cycle. I managed a House campaign in 2018, and Swing Left was one of the resistance organizations that popped up after Trump's election in 2016. And it was one of those organizations similar to Indivisible, Run for Something, that saw a huge wave of grassroots energy following that election. And so here I was, a House campaign manager, trying to be part of this effort to take back the House in 2018, and really benefited from all of the Swing Left volunteers and donors that came my way as a campaign manager. Swing Left's model is relatively simple. We have about 1 million grassroots members across the country that volunteer on races that will be decided in the margins, and also will have a massive impact in terms of who controls the balance of power in this country. So most of the elections that we work on are the red to blue races, the races that will be decided by a few percentage points, a few thousand votes, even a few hundred votes at times. And we really think that our volunteers and our donors can really help push some of those candidates over the line. Since we were founded in early 2017, we've sent over $40 million directly to these candidates in close races, and directed over 40 million donor contact actions for those races. So we were excited to be part of the movement that helped retake the House in 2018, worked with so many of you on this call to win back the Senate and the White House in 2020. And now we're gearing up to protect all that ground that we gained over the last few years. We've got some tough fights ahead of us in 2022, as you all know. And so Swing Left will be focused on protecting the Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate, working really closely with the DGA on some of these key gubernatorial races across the country and other state races that we think will be instrumental in either moving progressive policies forward at the state level or serving as that last line of defense in some of these red GOP-controlled state governments that are trying to pass the worst of anti-democratic extremist legislation. And historically, we know that the party that currently holds power in the White House can have a difficult time in the midterms, but we don't think that has to be our destiny in 2022. We've learned a lot of important lessons over the past few years, as well as lessons this past year in the 2021 elections. We still have a lot of time to fund good candidates, run and build strong programs, and also pass game-changing legislation like the Freedom to Vote Act, the Build Back Better package. So not only can we deliver on the promises that we made in 2020, when all of these folks supported our candidates and helped us rise to power, but also pass legislation that provides states and the legal systems updated guidance and parameters on how we can conduct free and fair elections in this country. So that's a little bit about Swing Left's work and kind of what we're looking at in 2022. But I also, since this is Gain Power and this is about jobs and how people spend a huge chunk of their lives, I also just wanted to talk a little bit about the internal part of this work too. At Swing Left, we really aspire to be a values-driven strategic hub for talent that want to work on, want to make electoral change, but also do it in a sustainable way. Everyone on this call knows campaigns can take a toll on our bodies, our mind, our bank accounts, and Swing Left really wants to provide an outlet for people who want to work on competitive elections at scale while also having more of that 9-to-5 vibe, prioritizing rest and recharging, as well as things like people programs and benefits, technology stipends, paid time off, how we can create more flexible work environments, especially while we're still in this pandemic. The way that we have conducted work in this country has changed so much over the past few years, and given folks a lot of thought about what they want their days to look like, in addition to how they spend their days at work. And so, as a lot of folks on this call think about, what your next role, what your next chapter looks like, I hope that you'll also not only think about the impact that you want to drive, but also what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your days, your teams, your managers to look like? What do you want the people around you to look like? We can't sustain this important purpose and values-driven work that is so deeply important to all of us without sustaining our minds, our bodies, and really feeding that fire in our gut that drives us to do this work. It is very much a marathon. It's not a sprint, and we need every single person to stay in the game as long as possible. So thank you so much to Mia for having me on, Gain Power for having us here tonight. It's always a pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you so much, Tori, for joining us, and thank you for speaking to your work, and people are clapping. Thank you, because I've known you a long time. I'm aging myself, but it's really great to see someone continue the fight and be committed to the cause. So I'm grateful that you're leading this organization. All right. Next up, we have Ross Racketto, who is a co-founder and co-executive director of Run for Something, a piece of democratic infrastructure designed to recruit and support the next generation of young, diverse, and progressive political leaders. To date, Run for Something has worked with more than 90,000 individuals who are interested in running for office while making over Run for Something. Ross spent more than 15 years in electoral politics, having worked for candidates from school board to president. He was previously a principal at the Smoot Twos Group. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Where he worked on a variety of advocacy and electoral campaigns. In 2016, Ross was an advisor with For Our Future, a multi-million-dollar super PAC that did field and organizing work in swing states. Ross lives in Washington, D.C. with his partner, Jess, his dog, Nacho, and his cat, baby Kitty. Ross, welcome. We're excited to hear how you'll be helping so many people across the country get elected next year. Talk to us.
Thanks so much for having me. And also, Tamia, congratulations on your new venture. Thank you to Game Power for having me. I've been a huge fan of Game Power for a long, long time, and have been really honored and excited to be a community member for Game Power for well over a decade. I also just want to say it's a real honor to get to be speaking next to all of these other folks like Roger and Tori, who and Jess, who all have done incredible work in politics in some way, shape, or form. This is like a really amazing group of people. So I'm Ross. As Tamia said, I'm one of the co-founders and co-executive director of Run for Something, and we recruit and support young, diverse, progressive folks who are running for state and local office, usually for the first, second, or third time. So we're really trying to work with folks at the most local, running for most local levels, who are basically pretty new to politics. We were born out of the, like a lot of other organizations, we were born out of the ashes of the 2016 election cycle. We truly, when we first started this organization, Amanda, my co-founder, and I truly thought this was going to be a side hustle. I was out in California managing a congressional special election that was a 22-way primary. It was, if you're ever going to do something like that, I'm always happy to give some advice on primaries with more than 20 people in them. My co-founder was working for Tom Perriello's campaign for governor at the time. We got together, we started having, we started to have some conversations. We wrote some plans, we built a website, we launched it on Inauguration Day in 2017. We actually meant to launch it a couple of weeks earlier when President Obama was actually giving his speech, one of his last speeches, and trying to tell more people to run for office. We weren't ready then, but we were ready on Inauguration Day. And in the first couple of days, we had more than 1,000 people tell us that they were interested in running for office. In the first few months, we had more than 10,000 people tell us that they were interested in running for office. And Amanda and I looked at each other like while we were seeing this happening, and we said, like, holy shit, like we got to do right by these people. And so that is how Run for Something truly got started. Since then, we have over 90,000 people who have told us that they are interested in running for office across the country. We've made over 2,000 endorsements. We've helped elect over 600 folks in almost every state across the country. And honestly, I think we're just getting started. We're going to continue our baseline of program as we go into the 2022 election cycle and beyond, which means we'll continue to recruit. We will continue to try to inspire more young people to see themselves as public servants in elected office. We will continue to work one-on-one with candidates to try to make sure that they're running the best grassroots-oriented campaigns that they possibly can. But 2022, 2023, 2024, it's become a cliche at this point. Every one of these election cycles is going to be the most important election cycle of our lifetime. The stakes aren't getting lower. And so we are trying to respond to the moment, and we're launching a couple of new programs as a result. The first is we're going to be working on the ground to recruit candidates for election administration roles across the country. We don't know what's going to happen in the U.S. Senate with voting rights legislation. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the courts with all the lawsuits around redistricting. But one thing that we do know is the people who run our elections are elected at the local level. They're often elected in races where nobody's running. They're often elected in races where you only need a few thousand votes to win. They're elected in places that, we largely ignore. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time and energy over the next 3 years, making sure that we get more of those folks elected across the country. And then as we saw in Virginia, all of the sort of cultural issues, critical race theory, et cetera, around schools has been, a salient issue. According to Ballotpedia, about 30% of the anti-CRT candidates who ran for office in 2021 ended up winning their races. And they saw a drop about 20, usually in an election cycle like 2021, you'd see about 88% of incumbents win their races. This cycle, it was in the 60s. So they made some ground. They didn't win everywhere, but they also made a difference in the Virginia statewide elections, which is why we're going to be working really hard with our partners, like at the school board level, to empower school board candidates with the messaging and tactics that they need to have the one-on-one conversations with voters that are necessary to actually break through. We're not going to be able to TV out our way out of critical race theory conversations. Those are going to have to happen at the door, and some of the best messengers to do that are state and local candidates. So 2 pitches here. 1, working for the DNC is awesome. Love the DNC. Working at the DGA is awesome. Love the DGA. Working at the DS is awesome. Love them. But I would also encourage you, if you are interested in working a campaign, to look in your own local community. There are going to be people there running for city council, for school board, for county board, for American Flood Control District, if you live in California, for mosquito board, if you live in Florida. And those are the races that make the biggest impact in people's day-to-day lives. Those are the offices that control school funding. Those are the offices that control criminal, like basically everything that we need to do around criminal justice reform. Those are the offices that honestly, in the absence of being able to pass big federal legislation, are going to help us drive the next sort of wave of policy around climate change. So these individuals in these elections at the state and local level are so deeply important. And so when you're looking for a job, I would highly encourage you to look around in your own community, see who's running, see if any of those folks inspire you. That's partially how I got involved in politics originally. In 2005, I walked into a campaign office to try to get an internship for a guy running for mayor of San Antonio, Julian Castro. And by the end of the race, I was his deputy field director and GOTV director. So, that kind of stuff happens all the time. And at the local level, you really do have real opportunities to move up. And then the other pitch is Run for Something's hiring. So you should go to Game Power's website, look at our job descriptions. And yeah, I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you have any questions for me about running for office or working on local campaigns, you can actually reach me at ross@runforsomething.net. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. You're amazing. And I remember when you all started Run for Something. So congratulations to you for all of your work and all of the many candidates that you have running for office. So I'm excited to see what next year brings. And we'll make sure we drop your information in the chat so people can see it. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Daria Dawson, who's the National Political Director at America Votes. Her 15-year career includes positions in the labor movement and electoral campaigns. She is a graduate of the greatest HBCU in the world. Now, before I say this, I also attended the same HBCU. It is already written in her bio, but I don't disagree with this. And now I need to include this in my bio too, Florida A&M University. And I'm going to do the Rattler symbol just because that's what we do. And she also is a faithful, cheerful cheerleader for the Yankees. Daria, we are so excited to have you today. I'm just a little biased because of where you went to school, but I know that you're also doing really great work at America Votes. And I'd love for you to talk to our audience about how you all are working to engage people of all backgrounds next year to get out the vote and for both progressives and Democrats across the country.
Well, thank you, Tamia, and my fellow Rattler. Congratulations on the next venture in your life. Super excited for you. Thank you, Gain Power, for having me, and everyone, welcome, of course, to Power Blue 22. Like Roger said, it is very weird to say 2022. Basically, I guess we should get used to it because it is not December, and we are in the last quarter of 2021. So as Tamia said, I am the National Political Director at America Votes. I want to make a note of me being the first woman and the first person of color to be the political director at America Votes, to show that the progressive movement, while we are making strides with diversity, we still have a very long way to go. I just got into this position in November of 2019. So America Votes is probably that organization that you have never heard of, and that is intentional. We are very much behind the scenes. We support C4 and Super PAC campaigns and infrastructure to do their independent expenditure programs. And what I mean by independent expenditure programs is that we do not work with the DNC, we do not work with the DSCC, we do not work with the D-TRIP, we do not work with candidates. We work to build infrastructure behind the scenes to ensure that we are getting out the same messages of the candidates, but by those infrastructures or organizations that have a vested interest. So when I say organizations, I mean the organizations that you all know. The SEIUs, the AFSCMEs, the Emily Lists, the Planned Parenthoods, the LCVs, the Indivisibles, the Black PACs, the Somos Votantes, and so many more across the country that are doing long-term work and keeping that campaign infrastructure in states. America Votes, we are in about 20 states, and particularly the battleground states, including the new battleground states, Georgia and Arizona. We are there year-round. Our staff is working very hard, looking at long-term planning, and particularly focusing on what we call a spread out the vote program. Not talking too much about 2022 because kind of illegal for me to talk about that in front of some of these folks, but we are going to think about how do we continue engaging from when ballots drop through election day, and using every tool in the toolbox to talk to voters, particularly those that are part of those constituencies that we need to turn out to win. As Tori said, history is not on our side when it comes to this midterm, but as Ross also said, this is the most important election of our lives. And I know we hear that all the time, but I want to preface why it is exactly the most important election of our times. In order for there to be real effective policy changes in a country, one political party has to win at least 3 federal elections in a row. Barack Obama did not win 3 elections. He won in 8, but lost in 10 and won in 12. Bill Clinton won in 92, lost in 94, won in 96. We won in 2018. We won in 2020. We have to win in 2022 to continue to hold power, as I look at my friend and also fellow Rattler Tasha in the House, and expand on that power that Jessica said in the Senate. If we want to do real changes with climate change, if we want to codify abortion rights, if we want to ensure that transgender folks have protection, if we want to get the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, passed again, then we have to continue winning elections. There is never a time to sit out. I would say one thing that we are certain of in 2021, particularly in Virginia, it's going to be a high turnout. And high turnout does not necessarily mean that Democrats win. We have to find and turn over every rock, every leaf. We need to talk to people who we usually don't talk to till Labor Day. You guys know what I mean when I say about that. And we also need to do persuasion and work with those messengers, like the groups that I said, that people trust in order to engage and to turn out. So I'm going to take a step back because I don't want to preach too much. I get really excited when it comes to talking about campaigns and elections. But like Tamia said, I've been doing this for more than 15 years. That was definitely an old bio that you had, Tamia. But I, like many folks who already said, I literally packed up my car and said, I'm moving to DC, I'm going to work on campaigns and I will make it work. And I remember Gain Power, at the time being Democratic Gain, being one of my favorite websites to go to just check and see what opportunities were out there. I've slept on people's couches. I've lived out of my car. I've pounded the pavement. I've knocked on doors. I started as an organizer like most people, but it is a lot of hard work that you really have to be committed to, but it will always pay off. I never in a million years thought that I would be a national political director having input on political programs that are necessary to continue to win long-term power. So America Votes, like I said, we are a permanent campaign infrastructure in about 20 states across the country. We believe in direct voter contact tactics, so knocking on doors, field, mail, phones and SMS, and doing that throughout the year. Now, working, I can say this because it's accountability programs, making sure that folks know what the President of the United States and our governors who are on the ballot, the good work that they're doing. And that's going to pivot, of course, later on down the line. So we will be hiring. So don't be afraid to look out for at americavotes.org, check out our jobs. Also, we'll be working with Gain Power to ensure that you all have access to that. It is, as I think Roger said this earlier, no job is too small in order to get the work done. And we need young people, we need folks who are energized because again, every election is an important election. Thank you so much for having me. Best of luck in your next steps and let's go do this.
Let's do this. Thank you so much. Thank you for you said you wanted to preach. You did preach a little bit, but I think that was great. And we appreciate your words of wisdom, fellow Rattler. Thank you for the work that you're doing. We really appreciate you. All right. Next up, we have Lisette Ocamp, who is the Executive Director at Voto Latino and was recently appointed just this fall. She most recently served as People for the American Way's political director, and in this role, she ran People For's IE work, most of which focused on the Latinos Vote program. This program engaged Latino voters through paid and earned media and included work to expose and counter anti-immigrant, anti-Latino rhetoric from far-right leaders. In her time at People For, Ocampo managed the organization's anti-Trump electoral efforts, worked with state and local leaders and organizations, and those leaders included Dolores Huerta, Alicia Machado, and Rita Moreno. And she served as a key spokesperson pushing back against right-wing extremism, especially as it was related to immigration, civil rights, and voting rights. God bless. She also led the work on federal, state, and local elections across the country, including special elections, off-year, midterm, and presidential elections. Ocampo provides political commentary and policy analysis in both English and Spanish language. She's been cited as an expert in national publications ranging from the Washington Post to Latina Magazine, and has appeared on national broadcasts, including Univision, Telemundo, CNN en Español, and MSNBC. Lisette, I'm so happy for you in your new role, excited about what's at stake for Voto Latino. And, given your background and experience, I know they are really headed in a great direction. Talk to us about your work and congratulations to you on your new role.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be a part of Voto Latino and to be a part of this group. Thank you for inviting me. And I think we've crossed paths along the way. So it's so great to see a lot of folks who have been part of my world. I want to give extra shout out to Daria, who I felt that. I felt her presence when she joined America Votes. So I really appreciate all the work she's done in a partnership. And of course, my fellow campaigners and program folks with Tori and Ross, who I've also crossed paths in the past. I just want to reiterate something that Daria said. We don't have enough of our folks on the IE side. I know a lot of campaign people, and I look around the rooms and I'm like, where are my campaign people? They would be really good doing this. And I think that as a former campaign person, I think that the IE side seemed so nebulous, I guess. I don't think I quite understood it, even now maybe, but especially then. So I think that it's definitely, we definitely need a lot more folks, especially from the campaign side. So I want to give a shout out to the IEs and to all the nonprofits that do political work. But there are nonprofits that do a lot of political work. And it really is, I really do feel very appreciative of being in these types of organizations because I get to do campaign work, but then I have the benefit of also having a life because I'm not working 22 hours a day. So, and living out of, a suitcase, which is also great. You should also do that. We've all been through that. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Voto Latino. So we are the nation's largest Latino organization that focuses on voter registration and turnout. We have innovative digital campaigns, culturally relevant programs, and authentic voices that we use to shepherd the Latino community towards realization of its political power. In 2020, we registered over 617,000 voters. And of those voters we registered, 77% voted and 52% voted for the first time. We mobilized 3.7 million voters, and we have over 3.2 million supporters and reached roughly 11 million people a month across our digital platforms. So we are very excited to continue this work in 2022. We are planning to register another 400,000 voters for 2022, and we're focused on many of the same states that we were for 2020. As you guys see in looking at the political map and seeing where that's my dog, and seeing where the U.S. Senate race, that's Bruno, seeing where the U.S. Senate races are and the gubernatorial races are, they're in a lot of the same states where Latinos could decide elections and have a lot of political power. So we're, obviously Arizona, we have Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida are all states where we have both a U.S. Senate and a gubernatorial election. Then we also have Texas. I want to put a shout out. Obviously, we have a gubernatorial race there, not a Senate one, but we have been there for many cycles, and we are very invested in Texas and excited about Texas. We're also involved actually in suing Texas, so on voting rights and on the district lines that they drew. But anyway, we're also on the congressional level in California, and so we, going into 2022. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of places where Latinos can decide the election and where it's critically important to engage Latino voters. The other thing that, we're looking at is, what we've seen with 2021. Obviously, there's a lot of different analysis and what happened in Virginia. One thing we did see is that turnout increased generally overall, pretty much in every single precinct, except for like 1.5 or something, 1 or 2. Turnout increased by a lot, but it just increased a lot more on the Republican side. They have a lot of enthusiasm, and so we're going to have to make sure that we do everything we can to get our folks out to vote. And I say that because another thing that we're working on right now is we also work on advocacy for the Latino community, and we are fighting to include immigration provisions and Build Back Better. That's still not 100% yet. So all of you in this work, make sure we have immigration provisions and Build Back Better, because we're going to have to go to the Latino community come election time, and still we're talking to them about how Democrats promised to do something on immigration, and we have for many, many years. And so what we hear a lot of times in focus groups when we talk to the Latino community is like, well, they're both bad. And so we're trying to change that sort of trying to educate voters and change that narrative, but we need to show some progress on policies that they care about, that they feel every single day, in order to be the most successful in that type of energy building that we need to win in 2022. So I want to, that's a lot of work that we have to do, a lot of hard work, and obviously, to do this work, and because our organization continues to grow, we are hiring. We have many positions available. As a former campaign staffer, having been a part of the Obama campaign and been a part of several other elections, I love campaigners. So if you guys have worked on a campaign, please apply if you're interested. We have Vice President of Communications, Vice President of Campaigns, Executive Assistant, Staff Assistant, Operations Manager, Project Manager, Policy and Advocacy Manager are the main things we're hiring for right now. And the most important thing is talented individuals. So if you're not sure which position maybe is for you, if you're talented, let's figure it out. Like we can figure something out, because we know how much work we can get done. And there's so much work to do when we have folks who are talented and passionate about the work. I feel very lucky that I get to be at an organization and do work that I truly am passionate about. I think that is something I feel very privileged to be a part of. I come from a small town in California. I'm actually here right now. My parents were farm workers, immigrants from Mexico, and I'm in a mixed status family. And I have seen, that my family, Mexicans and immigrants being called dogs. I've seen, that type of hatred a lot. And I've seen sort of the need for growing political power among the Latino community. I've felt many times invisible. I felt the Latino community has been invisible in many spaces and really not included in a lot of spaces, especially, in a lot of professional spaces. So I'm really glad that some of that is changing and that, this group here is here. And I want to let those folks know, if you are a Latino individual, that there are a lot of folks like me who can help you out in your journey, and whether it be campaigns or government or nonprofit world. So I'm really excited to be here and to continue to be a part of this organization that stands up for folks. I remember thinking, there was an instance where I felt left out of a certain national narrative, and there was Voto Latino speaking out on this. And so I think that really makes the work so much more enjoyable. I will also do a shout out on how great it is to work in terms of employee benefits. And I want to echo what Tori said in terms of the importance of self-care, the importance of having a flexible workplace. We are largely focused, our work is targeted towards young Latinos. We have a lot of young Latinos on staff. Gen Z, love you so much. They push us to be even more flexible and to have, even more generous workplaces. And I'll give you an example. We're going to have 2 weeks off completely for Christmas. We had 1 week off completely for Thanksgiving. Just the thought that you don't even have to ask for it. You don't even have to think, is it okay if I ask? Is it okay if I, So we really believe that, folks should work hard, obviously, but also take time for themselves. Look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you, but generally feel so honored and privileged to be a part of this group and to be invited to speak to you today.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for telling your story. I agree with the importance of self-care, and you just gave me an idea about being off for longer than I typically would. But we really thank you for the work that you're doing, and excited to see what's ahead for next year. So thank you for joining us. All right, next up, we have Heather Williams, who is the Executive Director of the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, where she directs the day-to-day operations. Under her decisive leadership, the DLCC has transformed into an organization that has the structure, skills, capacity, and budget to gain 8 new majorities, 10 new trifectas, and hundreds of legislative races. She has led the organization in achieving more than 200% budget growth from 2016 to 2020, and aligned resources with the DLCC's strategy, supporting legislative Democrats with more than 300% growth in contributions and services. Williams cares deeply about the DLCC and its staff. She's built a culture and managed the HR process to create a work environment that supports team members to stretch themselves professionally while supporting them personally, hiring, developing, and retaining the best talent, and fostering organizational innovation. Heather, after a successful run so far, talk to us about how we're going to continue that effort for 2022.
Sure. I do have to say, it never gets easier hearing somebody read your bio. It is the strangest thing. I don't know if you all feel that way, but thank you for that.
I would say I'm glad mine wasn't read, so I hate you.
So weird. But thank you, and hi, everyone. As Tia said, I'm Heather Williams, the Executive Director of the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, and we're the official Democratic committee charged with winning America's legislatures. I'm really excited to be with you all tonight and want to thank Gain Power for having me. So many of my fellow panelists are critical partners in the work of the DLCC, so it's so great to be with you all as well. So I've been working with the DLCC for over a decade, and I can truly say that the amount of energy surrounding state legislatures in the past few years is more than I ever thought possible. The fight to win back power at the state legislative level is tough work because Republicans have done a really good job gerrymandering themselves into power. So over the last few years, we've honed and updated our strategy to make sure we can meet the moment. As the only official party committee focused on exclusively winning majorities and building Democratic power at the state legislative level, our 50-state operational blueprint and data-driven programs ensure that state Democrats have the training, staff, and resources they need to win. The DLCC provides campaign expertise, access to cutting-edge data, powerful field operations and training opportunities, independent expenditure campaigns, and everything else it takes to win elections. The DLCC partners with state caucuses and legislative leaders to implement campaign programs that will spearhead strategy to win state legislative chambers. We find that the best way to win at the state level is to build from the ground up and make sure that our campaigns have the resources they need to be successful. Looking to 2022, we're going to shore up our majorities in places like Maine, Colorado, and Nevada, while mounting strong challenges to GOP majorities in Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire. We know that 2022 is going to be a fight. There's no question 2021 was tough for Democrats, but there are a lot of silver linings at the state legislative level, and we can replicate their success. In Virginia, many of our incumbents in competitive districts across the suburbs were able to win in tough environment with the message laser focused on their accomplishments in the legislature. We've also had success focusing explicitly on protecting reproductive access in special elections, even before the Supreme Court effectively allowed Roe to end in Texas. Right now, we're watching as GOP-controlled majorities work to undermine our democracy, attack abortion rights, and even dictating what our kids can and can't learn about the civil rights movement. Over a dozen GOP lawmakers were at the January 6th insurrection. Hundreds work to spread Donald Trump's big lie, and many are pushing sham election reviews in their states. This is really dangerous stuff, and by either unseating those individuals or putting them in the minority, we can help safeguard our democracy and do so much good for the country. When Democrats get a majority in state legislatures, they very quickly move to pass progressive policies that might be stalled in Congress. And I should mention that it's often in partnership with a Democratic governor. State legislatures pass the policies that have the greatest impact on Americans' day-to-day lives. If you look at what's happening right now with abortion rights, that's because Republican legislatures who have been passing abortion bans for years and have been waiting for a Supreme Court that would uphold them. They finally got their wish, and now fighting back starts in the state. We also have many blue state firewalls where abortion access is protected regardless of what happens to Roe. If it wasn't clear before, it certainly is now. State legislatures are truly the building blocks of our democracy. And in 2022, we have the opportunity to build up democratic power, stop bad legislation before it starts, and elect leaders who are going to focus on the needs of their constituents. That starts with ensuring that we have talented staff at every level of the ballot. There will be a lot of exciting opportunities in 2022 down ballot. A lot of the candidates we work with are running for office for the first time. There are union members, teachers, LGBTQ folks, single moms, 20-somethings, groundbreaking candidates who will be the first ever in the legislature. Truly hardworking people that just want to work hard for their communities and bring their perspective to lawmaking. And electing them to office is really gratifying, especially when you see how fast change can happen in state legislatures. We are doing all of this while creating an organizational culture that challenges the historic norms of political campaigns and committees. At GLCC, we are committing to hold ourselves to a standard of respect, inclusion, and growth. We value performance and outcomes over performative industry expectations, and we are always working to ensure that our policies and benefits reflect the policies our legislatures are fighting for every day. We are building not just for the team we are today, but the team and organization we want to be in the future. Simply put, our team is the best of the best, driven by winning and electoral success in the states. There's a tough fight ahead of us, but we're ready and we're excited for the coming opportunities in 2022. With that, I want to say thank you again for being here, for your dedication to this work. Together, we can make powerful impacts on our democracy, on electoral outcomes, and on the lives of people across this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. We're grateful to have you and grateful for the work that you're doing. And it's a good reminder of what we need to do for next year. So thank you so much. All right. So last but certainly not least, we have Tasha Cole, who is currently the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Diversity Officer for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, also known as the D-TRIP. This is a historic role in the organization's history where she is responsible for implementing the organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in operations, data and targeting, voter mobilization, vendor recruitment, staffing, candidate, and member engagement. So she's not busy at all. She's served for the past 4 years as co-chair for the board of directors of Running Start, a national organization whose mission and vision are to engage young women in politics. Tasha is an experienced strategist with demonstrated executive experience in public policy, nonprofit, politics, government, and media. Under her leadership as a vice president of resource development for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, she raised nearly $70 million in revenue and implemented programs that transformed the brand and reach of the organization. Her political experiences include working on several defining moments in political history, including 3 presidential campaigns, 5 political conventions, 2 statewide ballot initiatives, and deputy campaign manager for a U.S. Senate campaign in Florida. And Tasha served for nearly a decade on Capitol Hill as the chief of staff, senior advisor, and communications director for 2 members of Congress from Florida. Tasha is a proven leader committed to advancing communities, opening doors of opportunities, and transforming the status quo. In 2019, she elevated the DEI department of the DCCC, and that is where she is today, and she is a senior leader with a full support team. This is the second cycle the DCCC has had more than one fully dedicated staffer, and the department is tasked with developing long strategic goals and objectives for the DCCC's diversity efforts across our work with partners, vendors, their work with partners, vendors, and campaigns. Before I turn this over to Tasha, I realized, Darius, I already see Darius' face. I realized that we have 3 alumni of the Florida A&M University on today. Tasha is also an alumni of FAMU, as we affectionately call it. And Tasha knew me when I was a student and she was working in DC. And I was the annoyance College Dems president trying to get stuff. So I've known Tasha a long time and have always admired your work and really grateful for your role at the D-Trip and love that you're a fellow Rattler. So Tasha, talk to us. Happy that you're here with us today.
Well, good evening, and I'll echo what Heather said. Even if you write your own bio, it still feels odd to hear it read, and you find yourself correcting it like, oh, I should have put that verb in. But this is a great to be with you all on a Thursday evening. I know I'm standing between other things that you all might be watching on television or other ways that you all would be occupying your time on a Thursday evening, but I think this is a great panel, and I really want to thank Amy and Tamia and the whole GAIN family for all of these opportunities that you all do and present for us to talk about the work that we're doing at our respective organizations and at the committee. As she said, I work for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, D-Trip, however you affectionately know it, but our mission for 2022 is simple. We want to protect the Democratic House majority. We are the only organization that our mission is to elect and retain the majority and elect U.S. House of Representatives. We are the campaign political arm. And as Tamia mentioned, I am the first to serve in this role as Chief Diversity Officer. And I won't tell the entire story, but I do like to share that this was something that I did not know. This was not part of my plan to end up at the DCCC, but I think they recognized the need to have the previous executive director, Lucinda Gunn, that many of you may know, recognize the need, along with others in the leadership, to have a dedicated presence around diversity and inclusion. And when she talked to me about coming to work at the committee, I made the recommendation and suggestion that there be a title that's commensurate with what's happening in the industry and other sectors in terms of bringing industry standards and principles and values and how that aligns with our democratic values and our progressive values of equity, diversity, and inclusion and belonging. And so I'm excited to now have a team. This will be my second cycle. I started with 2 people. Now there are 4 of us. I have a department, I have a budget. And why this is so critical, and I hope that this is a trend that we see now, Jessica Knight Henry, my good friend over at DSCC, who I think you all heard from earlier today. Tamara over at the DNC is a chief diversity officer. So there is this, I think, in the ecosystem of recognition that there needs to be dedicated resources and time in how we implement these strategies to not only mobilize voters, but how are we spending our dollars? Where are we spending our dollars? What companies, what is their commitment to equity and inclusion? And also, what are the resources that we are using? What are the tactics that we're using to reach voters? And not just the traditional ways that we have seen, but really, tasking people with looking at subgroups and the questions that we're asking. So all of that is what my team and I are responsible for. Look, we know the reality of history. And all of us could debate back and forth that the history has proven that the president's party loses an average of 26 seats in the House in midterm elections. We recognize that history is the appearance that history is stacked against us, but I know that we can, and there's a pathway to victory and a pathway for us to preserve our majority. I think these kinds of opportunities that GAIN is coming together, we're seeing more of these earlier on. We have almost 250 people on staff right now at the D-TRIP. That's more than we've had on staff this early in and off year heading into the election year. We have organizers on the ground in cities, about 10 cities across the country, in our battleground districts and competitive districts. We're not waiting for the redistricting. We know redistricting is still happening in states. We recognize that. We are staying very close to our allies and monitoring that, but we know that there are areas and parts of the country that need organizers on the ground right now. We have a democracy fellowship program that we're running to engage and have more young people. Tonight, we did a resume drop so that we can start looking at, I think we had close to 200 people who signed up, said that they want to work on campaigns across the country. So we are really engaging early in our focus groups, our research, and really looking at the qualitative and quantitative ways that we know to run campaigns, but also testing that against cultural competency. My team and I have sat in probably 1,200 interviews for like 9 different departments to really look at what are the questions that we're asking, and what are the ways that we are engaging and bringing in young people, not just young people, but we know that there are veterans and others who have been working on campaigns and asking them, can they sign up? And you've heard from many of my peers on this call about opportunities to work on these campaigns. This is now. Yes, we've been saying this is a critical election, and this is when I'm going to date myself because I was around in 2000. That was my first presidential campaign. But every election since then, we've seen transformation, we've seen progress, and we need to continue that. But this one is really critically important because we have a vice president who is an African-American woman. We have the control of the Senate. We see progress, we see diversity in so many ways across the democratic ecosystem. And this is threatening to our opposition. Some of the conversations that we are hearing around critical race theory, these are not new conversations. They are attempts to weaponize issues and keep us spinning in wheels. And we've got to sort of continue to do the work that we're doing at the D-TRIP. And I know the other committees are looking at how disinformation, what are the tactics, what is being used to sort of marginalize our voters, and what are the things that we can look out for. We've got to be much more sophisticated about that. And I really see that those efforts also have to ensure that there's an equity lens that is applied to that so that we don't find ourselves falling into the trap that the opposition puts forth towards us. So I think these gatherings are important. I heard one of the other panelists mention, if you all are interested in working for any of our campaigns or for the committee, we still have postings available that exist on our job site. As I mentioned, we're still looking for organizers. We have to staff up all of our campaigns, and we're still recruiting candidates. We're excited at the number of the candidates that have already stepped up. Obviously, protecting our frontline members is the most important thing for us, and we are investing those resources and working with those campaigns. But we know that there are candidates who've already stepped up, who've indicated that they want to run for public office, and that effort is underway. So if you all know someone who's suggested and interested and they want to run for Congress, we want to encourage that and ask them to get in touch with me. We can leave my contact information with Tamia and Amy so that they have that information. But here at the D-TRIP, we're excited about the opportunities that we see. We know it's not going to be easy. I think there is not any one of the panelists who's on this call who's spoken before me. I think we all know the pathway to victory won't be, as easy as we may want it to be. We do like to rest. We do like our sleep. But I am eternally grateful and appreciative of all of the roads that have been built to lead us to this point. And I believe that we have to continue take on that baton and keep pushing towards that looking at the resources that we have, investing in the campaigns, investing in our candidates, and investing in research and recalibrating. Some of the plans that we see now, some of the things that the folks talked about on this call, we know there's going to have to be some course correction or, different approaches as things evolved in the election year and as we hopefully come out of a pandemic. And I think as long as we're realistic about that and we have the resources and capacity in place, we will see the success of our efforts. So with that, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to me. And of course, I've got to give a shout out to my other Rattler sister, Daria. It's been, FAMU would be so proud to see us here on this panel. I've just had a chance to be with our president, Dr. Robinson. And so I know he would be so proud to see us Rattlers working in action and in politics here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much, Tasha. Really appreciate that and the work you're doing. And again, my fellow Rattlers, both thank you. This was not intentional, everyone. I realized it when we were sitting here. So thank you all so much for staying with us tonight. I know we went a little bit over time, but I think the wisdom from all of these people on here has just been so, we had more time. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for all of your work in these organizations. And the theme I noticed was that everyone has at least lived out of a suitcase and packed up a car and went somewhere and, took a chance. And it's paid off in so many ways for our country and also for all of you in these organizations. And so I want our participants to remember that when you see people doing this work, we have some really great people here who are really truly dedicated to the work. So just want to say thank you all for being participants in this, and thank you to our audience for tuning in. And then lastly, I wanted to say thank you to Amy Pritchard, who runs Game Power. She's just she's just amazing. I've had an opportunity of consulting with her for the last 2 months, and she doesn't really need me to consult. She's amazing. And so just want to thank Amy for that. And then of course we have some folks that sponsored us, Act Blue, the DLCC, thank you, Heather, Senate Majority, AmeriPAC, and Campaign Industries. So we start tomorrow at 10 a.m. Our hashtag is Blue22. And if you're looking for more information on everything from today, you can go to blue22.events. That's blue22.events with an S. And also special thanks to our production team for everything for today. So thank you all again for coming out. It was so nice to see all your faces. So many of you I have not seen because of this pandemic, but hopefully next year, since we're boosted up, we can see each other in person. Thank you all again for coming out tonight. Good night.